My name is Jessie Ace. I'm part of a group of ENabled Warriors that you've probably never heard of. We're fighting back against our invisible illness and taking the dis out of disability. We don't give sympathy to our symptoms. They enable us to be the warrior that we are. If you ask doctors and nurses, they'd say what we're doing is impossible. But pushing the limits of our conditions is something that we have to break through every single day. See, we push the limits. We are mentally strong, and we can do anything. The question is, how far can we push those limits? This podcast will give you the answers. I'm Jessie Ace, and this is the Disabled to Enabled podcast. Warriors, welcome back to part 2 of our interview with today's guest. In this section, we'll have a chat about the amazing things that today's guest has done. So hey, and welcome back. Okay, so you are a filmmaker. Like, that is so cool. Did you make like a lot of films before you met John and the rest of the team? Like, I kind of heard that the group that you worked with kind of didn't have a clue about anything to do with documentaries and things like that. So that must have been interesting.
Yeah, it was really strange too, because as someone who has, before this, I had made 2 other feature films. One documentary that we traveled all over the world with, won all these awards, about 3 bands trying to make it in Los Angeles. We followed them around for a year and a half. And then besides that, I had made a feature-length horror film, like a grindhouse, like, you know, paying it for everything with my credit cards type of movie. So when we got here, and, you know, at this point, I also was making commercials. That's kind of my day job, is I've made about 250 commercials at this point for companies kind of all over the world. They need something. They want, you know, the Hollywood sign in the background, but they're in India. So, you know, I shoot a commercial with, you know, all the American actors looking really happy with their product in front of the Hollywood sign, and
Nice.
that sells their headphones, and, you know, in the US and Britain and stuff like that. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff. But as a production team for our friend John, we kind of all came together before and kind of made like a set of rules. And one of the set of rules that we said was we weren't going to help unless they asked, that this was kind of going to be their thing. And we weren't going to commandeer it in any way, and it was going to be 100% them directing, them having all both creative and administrative say over the project.
That's really cool. And there's a really sweet part in the film as well, where they're all kind of sat around the table, and it's their kind of the first meeting, and I can't remember who said it, but they were like, you know, you should get some pen and paper and stuff, and they were like, oh yeah, like, you need to make a list. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they were kind of ringing the different actors and saying, like, you know, oh yes, so we want you to play the part of this one. And there was one character, wasn't there, who had to take their shirt off, and there was a lot of embarrassment, and they're like, oh, I don't want to say, you tell her. It was so sweet.
That is everybody's favorite part. That is everybody's favorite part. And like theaters, just like every theater across the country that we went to for film festivals, like people just like roar laughing at that part.
It's just so humble and so lovely. I absolutely loved it. So for people who haven't seen the documentary, tell us a little bit more about our friend John, what it's about, and what it really means to you.
Sure, yeah. So we gave a little bit of an opening, but really what it's about friendship, and how even after death, friendship kind of is a thing that goes on. So upon John's passing, he was writing this script, and his friends wanted to make the film. So one day my mom, like, I didn't even know, honestly, I had no idea that this film even existed until about 2 months after John passed. 2 months after John passed, my mom said, hey, you know, Heather, John's mother, said that John was writing this script, and the boys were supposed to make this film with him. Can you help them? And I said, yes. Like, you know what? Not only can I help them, you know, give them pointers, I also want to document this, and we can make this all-encompassing project where they're making the film and we're making a film about John at the same time. So that's kind of what the movie is. It's kind of a Frankenstein together movie where some people might look at it, you know, from afar, not knowing the backstory of John, and think that it's just like, oh, this is just a behind the scenes movie. But I like to think of it more than that. We kind of focus on John, tell people what John was all about, tell the people what these friendships were all about, and some really sweet moments before John died, using our archival footage and that kind of stuff with the boys, and then kind of painting the picture of why John meant so much to all his friends.
Yeah, definitely. And then seeing John's film at the end is just so sweet. It's so lovely. And yeah, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's just the sweetest. It really is. And what I really love is because I'm always into the sort of seeing the growth of people in films, which sounds totally mad, I know, but like, from hearing about them at the start with all the interviews with different people and things like that, and then seeing these guys like putting together this film and talking about John, it's just so lovely to see how they sort of grew towards the end, and how much confidence they had towards the end, and how much more kind of I don't know, like a tighter knit group that they seemed at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we saw their growth on film, which rarely happens. Usually with a documentary, you kind of don't catch those moments, and you kind of have to only get it from the interviews. But in the beginning, we see Brandon saying like, I didn't know we were having this meeting, or that I was supposed to do any of this, and he's all flustered at the meeting. And then at the end, we have Garrett saying, we're going to get a dolly shot here, because I think the dolly shot will be better for this scene, and we're going to need him over there, and we're going to need you over there. And then kind of they're all taking charge, and they're gung-ho and ready to make the film by the last few days, and kind of like making lists and delegating and basically acting like filmmakers.
Exactly. Yeah, they did start acting like filmmakers towards the end. And yeah, it was really cool. It was really, really cool. And I love that scene where they did the I think it was with your brother, and they were trying to do the dolly shot, and they were just kind of moving your brother backwards and forwards in his wheelchair to kind of capture it. That was so sweet. I didn't actually know what a dolly shot was, so I would imagine is that where you kind of zoom in and things?
Typically it's when you have a dolly, which is a camera on any kind of wheels. So basically his wheelchair in the dolly shot acted as the wheels. Gotcha. So you just basically be backing up slowly away from a shot, or towards a shot, or sometimes side to side. But in this case, his wheelchair just acted as all of that. So
I love that. I love how you kind of bring everything in. That was just awesome. Do you think this was quite a hard thing to do in some ways after losing John? I mean, I know you probably weren't as close to them as what the guys were. Did you think it kind of brought everybody closer together?
I think the film definitely brought people closer together. And the hardest part was definitely, because it was such an open wound at this point, going and interviewing John's mother and brother, and kind of seeing all the pictures of John all around the house. And even like before we shot, not a lot of people know this story, but before we shot, we encountered a lot of, not a lot, I wouldn't say a lot at all, but there was like a bout of racism when we tried to get funding for the film. Oh, no. You think of California as a liberal place where people are open-minded and, accepting of, all races and all that kind of thing. And we went to a pitch meeting with this guy who was a big real estate person who had a lot of money, and he had invested in films before. And I remember I was sitting there, it was me, Maria Olson, and one of the other producers. And we do the whole pitch and everything like that, and I can tell the wheels are turning in this guy's mind. And then he says, he's not listening really to a word that I'm saying. After my last word, he says, oh, you know what? None of my friends are going to fund a movie about about a disease that mainly only affects African American people. Can we make it about cancer?
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And we're just like, are you serious? Like, of course we just, ended the meeting there. We never talked to this man again. But it was like a lot of that kind of stuff where, funders are like, oh, well, like it only affects a certain part of the population. Like, how about ALS? Like, you have a story about ALS or breast cancer or something like that, and it, uh, I've never, obviously, being a white male, like face any kind of barriers as far as like, oh, you can't do this because you're this. And that was the only like firsthand experience I had ever had where people were saying we couldn't do something because of the content of the film, which I thought was like absolutely insane.
It is, yeah. And in this day and age, like, that shouldn't
Yeah.
even be an issue right now. Like, I just don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
It's, it blows my mind. But without getting too far down that rabbit hole, because that is a big rabbit hole, yeah, so let's finish up part 2 by discussing, do you have any advice for kind of aspiring filmmakers out there to, if they wanted to get started and maybe they've been inspired by the film or something?
Sure. I think that every single person has so many reasons why they can't do something. But, every single person has those reasons, even the person that do the thing. So you have to put all those things aside and really not let anything stop you, because at the end of the day, you have so many resources available, especially today with digital cameras, cell phones. Like, we're talking on a cell phone right now that can shoot 4K video.
Yeah, crazy.
So like, there's really nothing stopping you. If you have the imagination, then you can do it. There's nothing stopping you. And if you say like, oh, well, I don't have access to actors, I don't have access to crew, I don't have access to this or that, I don't have these fancy locations, just make stories about things you do have access to. If you have a pet turtle and you're in your room and you can't leave your bed, do a story about your pet turtle in your bed. Like, you have to start somewhere, and until you do it, you're just going to be talking about it. And then, someday it's going to be too late, because you're going to look back and be like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. So, to give a little story, like, when I first went out to do my first film, it was my freshman year of college. I had no idea how to use a camera or anything like that. I thought that right when I went to film school, they were going to be like, oh, here's our cameras, go make movies. And that's not the case at all. They wanted you to do all the general education requirements first. So I decided, I'm going to, every weekend, shoot this feature film with my friends. And we did that. And it took like a year and a half to finish because we had no idea where we were going to start. And the end was a lot better than the beginning because we shot pretty much sequentially. But, I learned more, I would say, just by doing that feature film than I probably did in all of film school.
Exactly. Me and my husband have this kind of conversation all the time as well. It's kind of like, how useful is that kind of level of education sometimes? Because I think most of the time you do learn more just by doing it.
Right.
It's like if someone is studying business or something, you learn more by starting a business than spending 3 years learning about how to do that.
I would say if you're a driven person who's like kind of a self-starter, then you could probably get away with just watching, tutorials, with all the different classes you can take now, whether it be like, Skillshare or any of those kinds of things, and YouTube videos. I think you can get a basis to where you can start something and just kind of improve your craft on your own. But if you're someone who's not a self-starter and you really need structure, and you procrastinate a lot, I've seen that's a good thing. And the other good thing about film school is, even if you learn nothing or you kind of just do the bare minimum, at the end of it you have this crew of people that are brand new, hungry, wanting to do things in the town that you're in. So you have a built-in crew right there, so you don't have to go and find all these people from scratch. Whereas if you lived in Montana or something like that, where there's no film schools, you'd have to kind of search for all those people and be a very long, tedious process.
That is true. That is the one benefit for sure. You like you say, you're kind of in that together, and you've all kind of I imagine you kind of act in different people's movies and things like that sometimes as well, if they're in need of like an actor or something.
Not so much anymore. When I was like right in film school, if you look at my IMDb, I have so many random credits that I even forget that I got because, like, you know, I was put on this film. To be completely honest, I was put as a colorist on someone's film in college, and I'm colorblind. So, like, how does that work? You know, like things like that would happen all the time, where you know, people wouldn't show up, and then all of a sudden, you know, I was put into things. My second film I worked on, it was in New Hampshire, and I was supposed to be a producer on it. And the first day, the guy the guy who was like one of the main characters gave an excuse that his car broke down or something like that. So they're like, "Hey, Edward, you're gonna act in this movie now that's shooting all summer every single day. Have you ever acted before?" "No." "Oh, that's all right. Just learn these lines." So then I'm like starring in this film with like there's 3 other leads, and I'm just in this film, and I have no wardrobe or anything like that. I'm wearing the shirt that I had on for the day of being a producer, and I basically it's the most ridiculous thing ever. It was so low budget, and in that summer I got like really, really thin, and we didn't shoot things in order. So like I'm 60 pounds heavier in some scenes than I am in other scenes, and my hair is completely different. And throughout the entire film, I have a shirt on inside out because I have a logo on the front. So you just see that I have like a tag hanging out the back of the shirt, and no one thought to like, hey, maybe like give him somebody else's, you know, wardrobe or something like that. So yeah, I mean, you will do a lot of weird jobs in the beginning just to see what kind of where you fit in. But these days I'm mostly just directing and editing things.
So you're all good. No inside shirts for you this time.
Right.
I love that. That is so good. And that's the kind of thing that you never see. You never really know about, you know, like kind of behind the scenes things. I love stuff like that. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing such amazing advice with us. Enabled Warriors, please join us again in part 3 to catch the final bit of our interview with today's guest. Super quick secrets round coming up. Remember, if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in this episode, then please leave a comment and let us know what it is. And subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss out on great stories. Enabled Warriors, do you want to win a copy of the Enabled Warrior Symptom Tracker book for free? The Symptom Tracker book will allow you to track your symptoms, instantly spot triggers, and get the best care possible from your doctors. Dr. Gretchen Hawley from the MSing Link said it was brilliant for those with chronic illnesses to give their doctors more accurate information. Recalling these nuggets of information can be a game changer in receiving the best care for you and your symptoms. Inside the book, you'll find everything that you need to live your best life with chronic illness. Have you ever sat in an appointment and couldn't recall when your symptoms started, how long they lasted, the date of your first relapse, how long you've been on medication? Oh, me too. It's so annoying. That's why I made these pages in the book to help with this. Do you want to find out what foods are triggering your symptoms? Great. That's in the book too. Do you wish that you could wake up feeling positive and energetic every single day? The daily sheets in this book will help you do just that. Enter the giveaway by going to www.mybookgiveaway.com and enter your details through the message on Facebook Messenger that will pop up. If you are impatient and you want one now, then go get your Enabled Warrior Tracker book from www.enabledwarriors.org/book. Both of the links are in the show notes, so go and click them there. And get in control of your chronic illness today and start living the life you deserve. Stay enabled, warriors. Warriors listening, if you've enjoyed this episode and you want to win $100, leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tell us what you liked best. We'll choose one review at random each month to win $100, and after you've left your review, remember, go and click that subscribe button. Are you ready to fight back against your chronic illness and go from being disabled to enabled? Do you want to be an enabled warrior, someone who's brave, strong, and confident, and someone who's ready to find a way to achieve awesome things despite a diagnosis? This is your invitation. Check out DISabledtoENabled.com for articles and reviews to find out how you can become enabled too. Subscribe to the podcast to always be in the know. If you think this podcast is better than sleeping in on a Sunday, tickle that subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening. And make sure to share this episode with someone who needs some inspiration. Want to ask your questions to future guests? Make sure to join our Enabled Warriors tribe on Facebook and look out for our question posts. Before we go, check out DISabledtoENabled on Instagram for posts that tell it like it is. And remember, warriors, stay enabled.